Hello, I'm Dr. Joe Pojman. I'm with Texas Alliance for Life. Thank you for joining us for our TAL update. This week we have an extraordinarily special guest. A lot of you know her and are well familiar with her story, but it's such a privilege to have Abby Johnson on our as an interviewee on our weekly update. Abby Johnson, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, always glad to be with you guys.
You made us so proud by being at the Republican National Convention just a couple days ago. We want to get that out in a minute. But, you know, Abby, we've known each other for a long time, and you have been such a huge friend of Texas Alliance for Life, but more generally, the pro-life movement in Texas and the nation and beyond, Europe and so many other places. I just wanted to refresh everyone's memory about your past involving the abortion industry, because it's such a dramatic story. I think from the movie and your book and our personal conversations, you first got involved in Planned Parenthood as a college student in Bryan, Texas, at Texas A&M.
Yes, and I was just there as a volunteer, believing I was helping women. Believing I was doing the right thing, and then was there as a volunteer for quite a while, and rose up through the ranks and was hired on as an employee after I graduated from college, and then rose up through the ranks pretty quickly, became the clinic director. And, you know, just became increasingly disturbed by some of the things that was going on inside of the clinic, including building this huge monstrosity of a facility in Houston, Texas, which is now open. We were going to be aborting babies through the 6th month of pregnancy at the point of viability. I was asked to double the number of abortions, the abortion count that we had at our facility. So to have an abortion quota, to double that number of abortions that we performed, that was troubling to me, because I'd always been taught by Planned Parenthood that our goal, our public facing goal, was to keep abortions rare, safe, legal, and rare. That's what we always talked about back then. But ultimately left after witnessing a live ultrasound guided abortion procedure where I saw a 13-week-old baby fight and struggle for his life against the abortion instruments. And I knew then that there was life in the womb, there was humanity in the womb. And if those two things were true, then I knew that I could never participate in abortion again. And so I left the abortion industry and became very outspoken about the issues of life and abortion, and try to do my very best to expose Planned Parenthood and really the underhanded dealings that are going on inside of the abortion industry.
And when you left, that was October of 2009, and that was not before you got, the year before, the Planned Parenthood Employee of the Year Award, right? Which I think speaks volumes, because it means you didn't leave because you were a disgruntled employee or you were being fired. You left as at the top of the pyramid, the top of Planned Parenthood structure, well thought of, and you walked out on your own.
That's
for the
true,
reasons
yeah.
you just said.
I wasn't on bad terms with anyone or anything like that. I was well respected among my peers, and was a beloved employee. And so anyway, I wasn't angry or anything when I left. It was really just the things that I had seen there.
Well, I remember we heard about you leaving, Abby, in late 2009, and then in 2010, we and other groups and a coalition that we had assembled got to know you. You came and met with us and told us several things, what we needed to have for an effective sonogram bill, an ultrasound bill, which we were contemplating would be the top priority for all the pro-life groups in the state in the next legislative session in Texas, which we began in 2011, January 2011. So you met with us, and you also told us how abortions were being performed at your facility in Bryan, which meant that when the drug-induced abortions using RU46 were being done, the physician who was responsible for them was never on site. That physician was never on site. Those were done totally autonomously from him, and I think you had told us many times he was out of the country.
That's true. Yeah, he was, for medication abortion, he was never on site. We never had a physician on site for medication abortion. What was interesting was that I didn't even know that was a problem. I remember saying that to you sort of in passing one day, and you said, wait a minute. Hold on, wait, back up. Tell me that again. What did you just say? And so I said it again, and you said, okay, wait, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And that just goes to show, I mean, a lot of times, we were told, this is okay. This is normal. The way that we're doing things, this is the way that everybody does them. And so I had to really learn when I left the industry. No, you actually shouldn't have been doing these things, Abby. You shouldn't have been giving anesthesia to patients. You shouldn't have been doing X, Y, and Z. Just because they, trained you in-house to do these things doesn't mean it was actually legal for you to be doing them. Or just because they told you it was okay doesn't mean that it was okay. And so, that was something that I had to learn coming out, and since starting my ministry, and then there were none, that's something that we struggle with as well, teaching the employees that come out of the industry, because they've been taught the same thing, and so we're having to help educate them. No, that's actually not normal. That's actually, you shouldn't have been doing that, or the clinic shouldn't have been doing these things.
And I remember that conversation we had, Abby. I remember fairly vividly, and you were shocked to hear that the normal standard of care for obstetrics procedures was that the patient meets with the physician in a one-on-one situation and gets counseling before the procedure begins, and some period of time, so the risks of the procedure, the alternatives to the procedure, and that was not happening in the Planned Parenthood abortion facilities, and not anywhere around the country, around the state. So that
Right.
was I remember that was a fairly shock to you, and we were shocked that was going on. So we needed to get your story and talk to the legislatures. Then State Senator Dan Patrick from Houston, now Lieutenant Governor of Texas, he was very enthusiastic about carrying the bill to require that the sonograms be performed and that the woman have the opportunity to see the unborn baby and to hear the heartbeat. So I remember we arranged for he and his staff would meet with you, and the Texas Capitol is kind of a sprawling Capitol complex, especially there's this enormous underground complex. And we had a meeting in one of the conference rooms for Senator Patrick, his staff, and you. And I remember that I said, Abby, I don't know if you're familiar with the Capitol. It's easy to get lost down there. Can I send someone over to meet you at the parking lot and walk you to there? And what did you say, Abby?
I said, oh no, that won't be necessary. It's fine. I've been to the Capitol many times. I know my way around. I used to do public affairs and lobby for Planned Parenthood.
Right. So the lobbyist for Planned Parenthood has become the lobbyist for the unborn babies, and that is just so remarkable. So many remarkable things about your life. So the sonogram bill did get passed. You testified in favor of it. You talked about what was really happening, and I don't even remember if Planned Parenthood's lobbyists even testified. I don't think they wanted to be.
They got up and left.
There.
I remember that they got up and left. I remember when it came time for me to testify, everyone who was with Planned Parenthood, they stood up and they walked out.
Well, I don't want to be derogatory, but I mean, it's like when you turn the light on in a room, the cockroaches run away. And I think that's what we saw. We are so indebted to you for that, as well as so many other things. I remember defunding Planned Parenthood. You told us how the budget for Planned Parenthood worked. We had been working on that, my staff and interns and volunteers and our legal folks had been going over the state budget to see where does Planned Parenthood get its funding. And it turns out there were at least five different sources, but the principal one, you told us that we had to cut it off, and if we cut it off, Planned Parenthood eventually would close its abortion facilities. I remember that. And in fact, you were pretty confident from running the budget in your Planned Parenthood abortion facility in Bryan, right?
Yeah. I mean, I knew here's where the pots of money are, and if we cut them off here, they won't be able to operate. And we were able to get that passed, and a considerable percentage of abortion facilities closed. And I think it was sort of a 1-2 punch, right? It was sort of ultrasound legislation and defunding. And I think those two hand in hand, having to have a provider on site, and then the funding as well. I mean, both of those cut into their profit margin.
Yes.
In different ways. And so because of those two being coupled together so quickly, they were just not able to, many of the clinics were not able to sustain.
Yeah, and that was interesting because the facility in Bryan, Texas closed. I recall it was Waco closed, Odessa or Midland closed, Abilene closed, Lubbock closed, several in San Antonio abortion facilities run by Planned Parenthood closed. It was amazing when we took the state and federal dollars away, they couldn't supplement their income enough to keep these abortion facilities open. Although you've told us many times that abortion is their profit margin, but they have to keep the lights on and the staff paid in between those abortion days. That's really how it worked, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
So flash forward from 2011 and summer 2011 when the defunding and the sonogram bill got passed, the latest numbers we have from the state of Texas for abortions indicate that the numbers of abortions performed in Texas every year have plummeted 25,000 per year. They've gone from something like 77,000 a year to about 52,000 a year. Still horrendous, but it's moving in the right direction, and it shows what good public policies, how they really have an effect. And Abby, I'm thinking of your advice, your work, your lobbying, your testimony can be credited with so many bursts. And I'm just thinking about the children who are in primary school, going back to school in August and September, who would have died from abortion had it not been from you joining our side and helping us in such a meaningful way.
Well,
we can't thank you enough.
It takes all of us, and I feel very blessed to have been able to be a part of y'all's team, and you guys are a force to be reckoned with at the Capitol, and you guys are the ones putting forward all of this amazing legislation, and I'm just an instrument to be used for all of the good work that you guys are doing. So I'm thankful that my testimony can be used in this way and can be shared. And that's the prayer, is that lives are saved. And we know that legislation, good, solid legislation, will do that it educates the public and that it does save lives.
We loved the movie, and we're so grateful to you for sharing this part of your life, Not All Happy. The movie Unplanned, and I remember the beginning of it. You said you're saying in the beginning of the movie that unfortunately this story is my story, and it wasn't all happy. And I'm sure it's not all happy to see that put out for the whole world to see, but we're grateful, and we are waiting for Unplanned 2 about how you changed the world after you left the abortion facility and became in the pro-life movement. You got called by President Trump or somebody representing President Trump to go to the Republican National Convention because, as we're saying, elections matter. We can't pass these things in the legislature unless we have a governor who's willing to sign it, unless we have a Senate with a majority of pro-life members. and a House with a majority of pro-life members. We have been grateful. We've had that now for about 20 years. We can't have that can't get these great things passed that are saving lives demonstrably unless we have the right people in office. So tell us about getting this call. Tell us about what it was like to answer that call and making the video, your testimony at the Republican National Convention this past week.
I got a sort of a preliminary phone call from President Trump's head speechwriter. She called me one evening on my cell phone and she introduced herself and said, I have been tasked to call and ask you if you are interested in speaking at the Republican National Convention. She said, this isn't an official invitation. She said, but your name is in the final selection process. And she said, so before we move any further, we just need to know if you're even interested or if you're available. And I said, I mean, I guess I don't have anything else to do. No, I'm kidding. I said, yes, of course, I would be honored. But I am not a person who's ever chosen for things like this. I mean, like if there's, a list of 10 people and 9 out of those 10 people are going to be chosen for something, I'm going to be the 10th person that's not chosen. So I didn't even tell anybody. Like I told my husband and I was like, I'm not going to get chosen. So nobody even think about it, but I thought, oh, but what a great honor, to be like in the final selection, group of people. And she said, if you are chosen, you're going to hear from, this person. And so a few days went by, I hadn't heard anything. And so I thought, well, I definitely didn't get it, didn't think anything about it. And then I was in Walmart shopping with half of my kids, getting them ready to go back.
How big is that half, Abby?
So I have 8 kids. So I was shopping with half of them in Walmart, and I get a phone call from a number I didn't recognize, and I answer the phone, and it was this guy who they had told me would call. And he says, are you still available to speak? And I said, yes. And he said, well, he wants you. And I said, okay. And they said, he said, so we will have somebody with the administration travel team give you a call, and they will get everything set up. And I said, okay. And I said, how long will I have to speak? And he said, 5 minutes. And so I sort of, I was trying to act really, cool. Like I get a call from the president's people every day of my life on my cell phone. And so I hung up the phone and I was really excited. And then I just thought, oh my gosh, I have to give like the most profound, impactful 5-minute pro-life speech ever known to man, and so then I felt like this really heavy responsibility, I mean, I thought, okay, like I've got to do this. I've been asked to do something really important. And, on behalf of these children. And so I really started thinking and racking my brain. And the thing that just kept coming back to me was that, they could have asked a number of people to speak on this issue specifically. And because there are so many great pro-life speakers, and there are a lot of people who could have gotten up there and could have given just a fiery pro-life presentation, right? And talked about how much we love babies and we love women and all the good that we're doing in the pro-life movement. But they asked me. And the only thing that's really different between me and those other speakers is that I have a lived experience that they don't. And so when I went back to my liaison person, I said, is it okay if I'm very graphic in my talk? And she said, yes, in fact, that's encouraged. And I said, okay. And so then I knew exactly which direction I wanted to go in my talk.
Well, I think it was magnificent. We were all cheering when we were watching it. You made us so proud, and I just know you did so much good. And, you know, one of the things we learn is what the opposition is saying when we get out there and say something, and I have heard nothing, crickets. No one is attacking Abby Johnson because you're unassailable. You're speaking the truth. And they don't want to even bring any attention to you. So that's up to us to bring the attention.
Well, they'll try to find things from, my past or past tweets or past things I've said or whatever, and I was like, look, I went to A&M and I partied a lot. So there's probably some old pictures of me getting drunk in college or something. If y'all really want to dig and find some dirt on Abby Johnson, I'm sure it's out there. But they do that because they don't want to actually attack what I said on that national platform. So they try to distract from the actual argument, and they start talking about everything else because they don't want to talk about the fact that babies are being torn apart in their mother's womb. They don't want to talk about everything that I said on that microphone. So they want to talk about everything else that's silly, that doesn't matter, because they don't want to actually have to confront what was said on that stage that night.
And I thought you brought out all those points so well, and especially in this climate where we are hyper aware of racism in our society and how it needs to be stopped. Planned Parenthood has never fully divorced itself from its founder, Margaret Sanger, a terribly racist and eugenist individual of great influence in the early part of the last century. And, here's just a question for Mr. Biden and Ms. Kamala Harris. Are they going to reject the endorsement of Planned Parenthood? Because that's an endorsement from a terribly racist organization. And if they're going to be honest, they ought to reject that and renounce that endorsement.
Yeah, no, of course not, because they want their money.
But you have endorsed Donald J. Trump, and why is that?
Well, I mean, look, we can just look at the sheer number of policies, the legislation, what he has done on behalf of the unborn and on behalf of conscience protection. And we can see that it's not even debatable that he has done more to advance the cause of life than any other president that has gone before him. And so because of that, he wholeheartedly has my endorsement. And, people are like, oh, but Abby, didn't you see what he tweeted? Or didn't you see what? I don't care. I'm not voting for him because what he tweets or because of this and that. I'm voting for him on policy. And when I go to vote, I vote for life first. That is, I am a proud single issue voter. And because without the fundamental right to life, every other issue, every other cause, every other thing that we can think of is secondary if we're not even here to live. And so, for me, we have a very clear choice. We have a president. We can choose to reelect a president who has tirelessly fought for the unborn, or we can elect one of the most radical anti-life tickets that we've ever seen. That's it.
Right. That's right. Abby, we're going to see your speech in a minute. Want to thank you for being here. I would be remiss if we didn't point out that Texas Alliance for Life has a voter guide at prolifevoterguide.org. People go that and not just learn about whom we've endorsed for president, but also for members of Congress, also the statewide elected officials, judges, just so many important races. It's so important this year. It really is perhaps the most important and consequential election of our lifetime. Abby, thanks so much for being here. You'll want to go to prolifevoterguide.org. I'll put that in one more time. And thanks for all your work. We look forward to working with you in the future.
Of course. Can't wait.
Thanks so much.
My name is Abby Johnson, and I spent 8 years working for Planned Parenthood, but today I'm a pro-life activist. When I was in college, Planned Parenthood approached me at a volunteer fair. They talked about helping women in crisis and their commitment to keep abortion safe, legal, and rare. I was convinced to volunteer and later offered a full-time job as a medical assistant before my promotion to director of the clinic. I truly believed I was helping women, but things drastically changed in 2009. In April, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year Award and invited to their annual gala where they present the Margaret Sanger Award, named for their founder. Now, Margaret Sanger was a racist who believed in eugenics. Her goal when founding Planned Parenthood was to eradicate the minority population. Today, almost 80% of Planned Parenthood abortion facilities are strategically located in minority neighborhoods. And every year, Planned Parenthood celebrates its racist roots by presenting the Margaret Sanger Award. Later in August, my supervisor assigned me a new quota to meet, an abortion quota. I was expected to sell double the abortions performed the previous year. When I pushed back, underscoring Planned Parenthood's public-facing goal of decreasing abortions, I was reprimanded and told, "Abortion is how we make our money." But the tipping point came a month later when a physician asked me to assist with an ultrasound-guided abortion. Nothing prepared me for what I saw on the screen. An unborn baby fighting back, desperate to move away from the suction. And I'll never forget what the doctor said next. "Beam me up, Scotty." The last thing I saw was a spine twirling around in the mother's womb before succumbing to the force of the suction. On October 6th, I left the clinic, looking back only to remember why I now advocate so passionately for life. I founded and currently run And Then There Were None, a nonprofit organization that's helped nearly 600 abortion workers transition out of the industry. For most people who consider themselves pro-life, abortion is abstract. They can't even conceive of the barbarity. They don't know about the products of conception room and abortion clinics where infant corpses are pieced back together to ensure nothing remains in the mother's wombs, or that we joked and called it the pieces of children room. You see, for me, abortion is real. I know what it sounds like. I know what abortion smells like. Did you know abortion even had a smell? I've been the perpetrator to these babies, to these women, and I now support President Trump because he has done more for the unborn than any other president. During his first month in office, he banned federal funds for global health groups that promote abortion. That same year, he overturned an Obama-Biden rule that allowed government subsidy of abortion. He appointed a record number of pro-life judges, including 2 Supreme Court justices, and importantly, he announced a new rule protecting the rights of healthcare workers objecting to abortion, many of whom I work with every day. Life is a core tenet of who we are as Americans. And this election is a choice between 2 radical anti-life activists and the most pro-life president we have ever had. That's something that should compel you to action. Go door to door, make calls, talk to your neighbors and friends, and vote on November 3rd. Take action that reelects our president, and do it with our very most vulnerable Americans in mind, the ones who haven't been born yet.